It's very complex, it's very difficult, and there's lots of different dynamics happening all at the same time. But the overall picture right now is that accountability is coming into our political system probably for the first time in our history. In other words, people are being held accountable for things. We're seeing contestation in a level that we've never seen before, and everyone is playing for keeps. That's why it's so hard.
How do we identify what's going to happen as a result of this accountability in terms of creating an environment for business to take place?
Different things are happening all at the same time. So some parts of the people who are in power, or the ANC, feel that they're under threat. And the way for them to deal with that threat, as they are, I would argue, in Gauteng, is to govern better. They know that if you sort out literally roads, robots, hospitals, schools, that they won't lose an election. Other people in other parts of the country, say maybe in Mpumalanga, the Northwest, and Limpopo, feel, well, if we're under threat, we've got to do two things. We've got to eat while we can, is the political phrase. We've got to take what we can while we can, and we've got to crack down on dissent. You see this in a national picture. For example, we've now got a head of the Independent Electoral Commission who's someone who's actually used to be the special advisor to the president. I would argue that that's taking the second option, trying to crack down on dissent, make it harder for anyone to beat you, whereas the Gauteng ANC is doing the first option, simply trying to govern better.
Okay, so if there are three indicators that we can look forward into the next 12 months, what should we be looking for as business owners in order to evaluate a high road and low road option?
The first thing is to look at, does the ANC lose any of the major cities, the major metros in next year's local government elections? It also depends on how coalitions are formed. So does the Democratic Alliance go into a coalition with its ideological foe, the economic freedom fighters? I mean, Julius Malema, Muse Memani, really? So those kinds of coalitions need to be sorted out. Key to all of this is, how does the ANC react? In other words, does it say, we've lost Nelson Mandela Bay, that's fine? As it did, I must say, the city of Cape Town. Does it try and fight some sort of rearguard action, as it has done when it lost the Council of Oudtshoorn in the Western Cape? These are some of the big things we need to watch out for. And then, of course, we need to watch what happens with the economy. If more and more jobs are created, the ANC will be seen to be benefiting from the sort of vibe that will be created by that. If the economy gets slower and slower, and I think it is going to, then you're going to see the ANC more likely to tuck into itself, talk more about the past, talk more about the glorious past, rather than the job-creating future. If it looks inward, that's generally a bad sign.
Last question, Steve. Social unrest. We saw it pick up at the end of this year. Will it continue as a trend next year? And what are the indicators there? Good for business, bad for business?
Well, it depends. If you're in the, burglar bar business, it might be good for you in isolated pockets, but that's bad for the country. Generally speaking, I think it is going to pick up, and that's because people are going to be voting next year. They want to call attention to the problems in their communities. We know now that people use violence as a way of gaining attention, and that's because it does actually work. Almost everything else is ignored. So that's the one thing. The second thing is that people realize their vote is more important now than it's ever been. It's more valuable. They're going to make parties fight harder for it. Again, that brings more violence into the picture. But more and more people also are losing hope. In other words, they feel it's not just them that are never going to work, it's their children who are never going to work. Imagine being 50, having a 25-year-old son and thinking, well, he's never worked in his life and now he's never going to. How do you respond to that? You certainly don't respond to that by helping to build a library. You think about burning it down, as has happened in some parts of this country. So we are, I think, going to see more social unrest, incidents of violence. We are seeing government in Gauteng being more adept at dealing with them and stopping them before they start. So again, it depends on where in the country you are, depends how the people in power where you are, how they deal with the opposition.